We're going to get started here. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Public Works and Gang Reduction Committee meeting. Today's Wednesday, June 18th. I'm Chairperson, Councilmember Joe Buscaino. I'm joined by my colleague, Councilmember Curran Price. Know we have a jam-packed agenda and two special items in relation to dealing with sidewalks. There are a few consent items we'll take now. We'll take on consent and approve items 6, 8, and 9. You're okay with that, Mr. Price? 6, 8, and 9.
And 9, yes.
Okay, without objection, we'll approve items 6, 8, and 9. And
I'd like to do 7 too, but we can talk about that if you must.
okay. Yes, we'll hold that on the table. We'll hold that.
Do we need to?
Do we need to? Do we want to take that?
Just want to get a report back.
And we have a request to take item 2 first. Michael, if you can read that into the record, I appreciate it.
Item number 2 is the City Attorney Report and Ordinance relative to the proposed resolution of necessity, finding that the public interest and necessity requires the acquisition of fee interest in real property located at 3283 Cesar Chavez Avenue and 3285, 3287, 3289, 3291, and 3293 East Cesar Chavez Avenue for the construction of the Cesar Chavez Avenue, Lorena Street, Indiana Street intersection improvement project.
Thank you, sir. Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, members. John Miner from the Real Property Division of the City Attorney's Office, along with the project manager, Vahik, what's his last name? Bartanian, and the chief of the real estate section of the Bureau of Engineering, Uriel Jimenez. We're presenting a report and a condemnation ordinance for the acquisition of 2 parcels that are needed for the Cesar Chavez Roundabout improvement project. The Cesar Chavez Roundabout is in the Boyle Heights area of East LA on Cesar Chavez. It's a 5-street intersection, which is kind of unusual in the city. And because of reports of accidents and pedestrian conflicts, we're trying to slow down the traffic. And because folks are not that familiar with roundabout circles in LA, trying to better move the traffic in the positions and in the directions that they're supposed to go. So the project will basically enlarge the oval area that the streets go around, and it'll install some medians on Chavez, Lorena, Indiana Street, and then on the other side of Cesar Chavez. And with these medians in place, it'll make it safer for pedestrians who are crossing at these intersections, because they'll have a kind of a safe harbor to stand upon as they're crossing the street if they don't make it across before traffic passes. And it will slow traffic down because the medians will kind of naturally force oncoming vehicles into a slower path as they enter and exit the roundabout. We have to take 2 parcels on the how do I describe this? On the western north side of the oval. That's Cesar Chavez going off to the left and Cesar Chavez going off to the right of the oval. And the 2 parcels that are needed are where the street curves.
What's there now? Are those businesses? What's that, commercial?
Those are businesses. It's the La Gloria Foods, Tortilla Manufacturing and Preparation location. And we've been unable to negotiate a an agreeable amount of just compensation for those parcels. So in order to keep the project on schedule, we need to get this condemnation ordinance adopted, and we will continue to negotiate with the owners.
How long have the negotiations have taken place?
At least a couple of years.
2 years now?
Yeah, at least. And the owners do have another location over on First Street, which is nearby, and they're thinking about trying to expand that property to include the manufacturing, or I guess that's what manufacturing and distribution functions of the business. But that's still a long ways off. But in the meantime, we really can't wait to get this project in motion. Do you want to add anything?
Now, these aren't the only, looking at the map here, these are not the only properties acquired, involved in the acquisition. The other ones have been acquired already, or these two parcels are holding up the project. And that's why-
If you kind of look at the colored map, you'll see the overlay of where the project is going to sit down, kind of in the middle of these five intersections. And on the left, the northwest portion of that roundabout, you see how it cuts across the block?
Yeah, right.
Where the little blue building is? It's at that intersection, or at that corner, that the properties have to be acquired by eminent domain, so that we can widen that street, install better sidewalks, smooth out the curve, so traffic going around as they start to come west on Cesar Chavez will have a smoother angle of approach. And then we put a large median there, which will naturally force traffic to slow as it goes east or west.
Is that the current Price Monument in the center there? Indicates a monument.
Well, actually, speaking of that monument, there's some
There's some historic value to that?
there's some war memorials that are there, and
What's going to happen there? Are we going to preserve that?
yeah, we're going to preserve that, and in fact, enhance it. Maybe Vahid can speak to that.
Okay, good.
But it will be better.
Yes, we're going to be preserving and relocating them onto the new islands that we create.
Very good.
We work very closely with the council office and the veteran associations in deciding and identifying locations where they go.
Very good. Okay, any questions, Mr. Price? Okay, the item's been moved. We'll approve item 2 without objection, and thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you. Have a great day. Okay, item number 1.
Item number 1 is initial study, mitigated negative declaration, and Board of Public Works report relative to the Van Nuys Fire Station number 39, California Environmental Quality Act compliance and project approval.
Okay, I do have a number of speaker cards on this item. What I'll do first is get a staff presentation and update, and then we'll go straight to public comment. If I can invite BOE, Fire Department.
Good afternoon, Councilmember.
Can you speak closer to the mic? I don't know if that's working.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Buscano and Councilmember Price. I'm joined today by Battalion Chief Kurt Klafta and Maria Martin. My name is Alan Kawaguchi. I'm the Program Manager for the BOND program, who oversees the Proposition F Fire and Animal Facilities. Fire Station 39, which we have here, is a 22nd fire station to be constructed with the Proposition F funding. It was approved by the voters in 2000. Fire Station 39 will be located at 14615 Oxnard Street. This is Oxnard Street. And it's going to be resting on approximately a 1-acre lot. The fire station itself will be 18,533 square feet facility. This location, it was already owned by the city and did not require any displacement of or relocation of residents or businesses. This fire station was previously brought before this committee and approved on September 4th, 2013. However, at the request of the committee, the Bureau of Engineering, in conjunction with CD4 and 6, met with the community to get additional input on the project.
So tell us, I know we did hear this back in September. We had some concerns from the neighbors. What are some of the mitigating measures that have been taken place since our approval back in September?
I'll turn it over to Maria Martinez that put together our environmental document.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. As Alan mentioned,
Good afternoon.
my name is Maria Martin, and I am the acting manager for the Environmental Manager Group in the Bureau of Engineering. Following discussion with staff from Council District Numbers 4 and 6 and members of the community, an acoustical study was completed and provided to the City Council. I'm just going to give you a little bit of background, and then I'll tell you what the mitigation measures were. In the interest of full disclosure, BOE revised the initial study, incorporating the acoustical study. The acoustical study indicates the project would elevate community noise exposure levels at the properties along Oxnard Street by 7 decibels, not considering any existing intervening structures, since the noise measurements were taken from the sidewalk. Following the LA CEQA thresholds guide, an increase in ambient noise levels of 5 decibels or greater would be considered significant. Based on Federal Highway Administration guidelines for noise barriers, a wall which breaks the line of sight would easily achieve the 5 dBA reduction, which is more than the needed 2 decibel reduction to mitigate to a less than significant level. Additionally, to address public concern regarding soil contamination, the revised initial study also included summaries of existing environmental site assessments, which included the project site. No contamination above applicable action levels was identified within the proposed project footprints at the depths that will be impacted by the proposed project. To address the community concerns, and here I go to the mitigation measures, 2 mitigation measures were added. One, the construction of a sound barrier wall along...
Can you show us the sound barrier wall on that? Thank you.
Which will be within the public right-of-way.
The sound barrier will be actually located from the corner near Vesper, and it'll follow in front of the fire station wall here.
Okay.
There's a sidewalk a little tough to see with the trees and the shadows, but it'll be conducted.
And how tall is that wall going to be?
The wall at this point is designed at around 6 feet tall. So it'll be the length in front of where this fire station would be exiting out onto the street.
Okay.
Okay, so the mitigation reads that the wall shall be no less than 6 feet tall, as to break the line of sight between a person of average height standing on the residential property. That's what the mitigation includes. The second mitigation measure that was added was a contingency plan for identifying, handling, and disposing of contaminated materials in accordance with applicable laws, regulations, ordinances, and formally adopted city standards. Now, this standard practice is and was previously part of the proposed project, and therefore technically not mitigation. However, in deference to community concerns, application of the contingency plan will be monitored as mitigation measure and was added to the mitigation monitoring plan. The proposed mitigation is consists of those 2 mitigation measures that I mentioned.
Okay. Fire Department?
Yes. The site was selected after an 18-month search of locations to find a suitable location for this fire station. The new location does meet all our criteria for response times, and that's why it was selected.
When you get a call at 0200, will a siren be blaring as you come out of the firehouse?
The main object of using our sirens is to break the traffic and to notify people that we are responding. At 2 o'clock in the morning, generally, we don't have a huge traffic problem where we're going to have to blare our sirens and make huge amounts of noise. The station is also being outfitted with traffic interrupters, so we'll be able to control the lights and break the traffic before we leave the fire station.
Thank you, sir. Can you give us an idea of the community outreach that's taken place since September when we approved the item? Because that was the direction of this committee in working with the respective effective council districts.
Well, as far as CEQA is concerned, we recirculated the initial study and 2 comments, and we're here with having addressed those comments.
Very good. Okay. Members, questions? Okay, thank you for your report, at which point I will take public comment. And I know there are a number of individuals here against the item, and there are a number here that are supportive of item number 1. And for the interest of time, if you are, everyone, I'm projecting that you all say the same thing on which side you take, but if you can come up and maybe offer something new that has not been said, that'd be really helpful to move the meeting along, because this is a meaty agenda that we have before us. At which time I'll call you 3 at a time. There are four microphones available. I'll call you 4 at a time. And when you hear your name, please find a seat here at the table. Luis Moon, Jeffrey Lynn, Beverly Simpson, and Mary Beth Schwarzenberger. And please just identify yourself before you speak, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Hello, my name is Louise Moon.
Good afternoon, Luis.
Good afternoon. Well, first of all, I have to laugh about that 6-foot wall. I'm 5'4". Is 6 inches really going to protect the sound? I mean, I don't know. But anyways, I am absolutely opposed to the location of this fire station. I want to make it clear that I do support the fire station. I do support the people that work for it. Absolutely, we all know that. But I think that the location is a terrible location for them to choose. I have a map here that shows where the fire station is now, where they want to put it now. These are the closest fire stations. Okay, as you can see, if this was originally one of the areas they were going to put it in, and for some reason it was turned down, not sure, but it was actually a bigger area than what they have now. This is where they want it to be. Okay, so if you take away this, you see where this is located. Look at this whole entire area that's not covered. This doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Okay, look how close this is. Look, it's right in the middle of everything. This is below the orange line, so that's against it, because now we got the orange line to contend with. We have all these people. It's very, very busy in that section, okay, taking the orange line. We also have a school, and a lot of kids have walked right through there. There's that. And then, of course, you have to think of the future, because Mayor Garcetti, as we all know, says number 1 on his agenda is safety, public safety. Well, this is taking everything further away from all these people, and I can guarantee you a lot of these people don't know what's going on. So I beg you not to make a decision now. I think that this is something that affects the future. We're talking 90 years out, I don't know, but we all know population growth is exploding.
Thank you, ma'am.
So,
Thank you so much. Sir, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mosqueno. Thank you, committee. My name is Jeffrey Lynn. I'm a resident. I live less than 100 feet across the street from this site. I'm also an attorney. I'm a member of the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council. I don't speak on their behalf. However, this project has been opposed not once but twice by the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council. There are public community impact statements on the record to that effect. It is opposed by 529 Change.org petitions, numerous other petitions. In fact, it's opposed by everyone except the politicians from CD6 who are insisting on putting it at this particular location. As my neighbor, Ms. Moon, just explained, there are far better locations for this because this will decrease, not increase response times, jeopardize public safety, jeopardize the children who walk to school, and probably result in an accident with either the orange line or the traffic on Van Nuys Boulevard. It's also inappropriate from an environmental standpoint. There are underground storage tanks, chemicals, carcinogens, and I would point out to this committee that when this committee approved this last September, it had a negative declaration, not a mitigated negative declaration. The city BOE was aware of what was going on under that site, knew about the chemicals, and redlined it out. They've produced the redline version of that to us, so this committee was misled last September. Now they have corrected that by putting in the stuff that they took out back then. The negative declaration, both the negative declaration and the mitigated declaration, admits that there is gasoline, benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, etc., known carcinogens above acceptable state levels underneath that site. They have provided no mitigation of what they're going to do with that. It also admits there are trapped pockets of methane gas, hydrogen dioxide, and a risk of explosion. That is on page 34 of the mitigated negative declaration. The mitigated declaration also says that the workers and the equipment on page 34 need to be decontaminated. We don't, but they do. I'm sorry, but...
Finish your thought.
Pardon me?
You can finish your thought.
Thank you. The site is dangerous due to its proximity to the orange line. It is inappropriate from a noise standpoint. I also want to point out, and this is important, that they did not do a noise study at the site. What they did was a noise study at the existing site and then ran some fire trucks down our street and compared that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Beverly Simpson. Thank you very much for listening to us today. To address the sound report that my neighbor said, they did do it across the existing fire station. And then they came to our street. They did not stand near my property. My property is within 75 feet of the doors of the fire station. He didn't stand there. I saw him. He stood 5 houses down. So how accurate is that sound test? I have a 7-foot wall behind my house. I don't need a 6-foot wall to protect me from sound. What I need is a different location. This is so wrong to put it here. Would any of you live 50 feet from a fire truck that when it enters the street, it's not going over here, over here. It is coming directly at my house within 20 feet of my bedroom, and then it will turn either right or left. With or without a siren, it is coming toward my house. I question the safety of that. When you asked Mr. Klapka about does he turn a siren on when he leaves the station, it is law that you must turn a siren on. If a fire truck doesn't have a siren on, he's breaking the law. Common courtesy, he wants to be nice, that's great. I don't want anyone to be injured because a siren was not turned on. The mere definition of the siren is to alert people. Whether you see them or not, it's a hearing device. You don't have to see a fire truck. You can hear it, and then you'll know. If you don't turn the siren on, how might you know? It's very close to my house. We're not fighting firemen. We're not fighting the good job that they do. We're fighting the location. Mr. Tommy Newman said to me, oh, there's other fire stations near houses. You're not the only one. He's wrong. There is no existing fire station in the city of Los Angeles that is 25 feet from someone's bedroom when a truck leaves the station. Thank you.
I encourage you to visit 48's in San Pedro.
Yeah, San Pedro, is it 50 feet from someone's
They're
bedroom?
right next door, ma'am. I know that because my aunt lives right next door. I grew up in that
Next
firehouse.
door? Next door?
Yes, ma'am.
Across the street?
Yes.
Next door is different.
40.
I would love to see it. Was the house there first or the fire station
The
first?
house was there first, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll see it.
Please, thank you.
Hi, I'm
Mary
good
Beth?
afternoon. I'm Mary Beth Schwarzenberger.
Welcome.
I was here about a year ago in front of you and spoke to the opposition of my husband and myself for this location, and I still have the same opinion. The fire department just said that they had a 18-month search for an alternate location. They gave us a list of the places that they looked at, and we went around and looked at those locations and spoke to owners, and no one had been contacted by the city. So I hardly disagree with him as far as what they did to find something else. In fact, we even found an owner of a property that was willing to sell to the city. I also would like to note that there's 2 elderly women in the room that are going to speak in favor of this location. And please know that they live nowhere near this location and couch their opinion on that knowledge. I'm asking you, we've gone through this for a year. We've gone through people that don't listen, don't care, for whatever reason. And I'm asking you to be the first group that actually says you're going to champion us and say to the city, sit down with us and find an alternate location. That's all we've ever asked for. We've never asked for the fire station to have a better facility. We want that for them. We just don't want it where they have selected. There is noise problems, there's hazardous waste problems, and it would destroy the community. So that's what I'm asking. just stick with us and say, let's stop and take another look, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, the next four, Brian Simpson, please come up. Scott Simpson. Jan Trebox, and Jacob Lynn. Please come forward. Who wants to start? Sure.
Yeah?
Yes.
Thank you.
Your name, please?
Sorry about that. My name is Jacob Lynn. I'm a resident. I'd like to start off by asking you a question, if that's all right. And I also want to say thank you for your time. You're all public servants, correct?
Go ahead. You can't, no Q&A between the committees. Just go ahead.
Well, by definition, you're public servants, if I'm not mistaken. The definition of public servant in the case of a city or any government is to serve the people, or the greater good, if you will. I think I'm correct in that statement. Here's what I don't understand about any of this. The pollution underneath the area is horrific. There's no way to mitigate or prevent it. When if construction does begin on this, and they start digging, all that pollution is going to go in the air. The wind, air currents will carry it throughout various locations. And also the fact that where we live and the various neighborhoods around it is essentially ground zero. Hundreds, if not maybe little thousands, might be affected by this pollution. And the fact that also because people are sick, including myself, potentially myself and others, we cannot pay taxes. We cannot contribute to the well-being of the city. Essentially, if this does get built, you hurt a lot more people than you help. Not to mention the fact that this location, because of response time significantly to another area that needs it. This road does not benefit, this benefits, well, really nobody. And the fact remains that it's the exact antithesis of the purpose of a public servant and the city's duty to protect its people and provide for it. That's what I understand. There is no logic dictating any of this. It appears to be, well, underhanded. I mean, there's a reason why people are angry. There's a reason why only a year ago, Occupy LA was camping out on your front lawn. There are reasons why protest movements happen. There are reasons why people are angry and want change and reform. It's for reasons like this. You can be the voice of change and show that the government, city, state, whatever, actually cares about its people. Because quite frankly, I don't feel that you care about us. And I like to give you the benefit of the doubt in this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Please hold your applause. Thank you.
My name is Jan Tribox, and I've been a Van Nuys homeowner for over 26 years, a Sherman Oaks recently annexed owner for now 3 years. My residence was previously owned by my in-laws for 14 years, so this adds up to 37 years of paying taxes to LA. Therefore, I believe this shows my continuity and concern for the city and the neighborhood. But the city never gave us a letter, a flyer, anything to say their notice of an intention. Nothing, with my tax money. My residence is kitty-corner from the proposed site, probably less than 100, 200 feet maybe from the main door and sirens. I heard how if there was a wall to go up, my property is not included, just so you know. I am a medical professional, and I'm greatly concerned about the noise and construction. We've already discussed the tanks. That's major contamination. I'm sure you guys all know that benzene and everything else, like Jeff said, is highly flammable and a well-known carcinogen. Causes bone marrow failure linked to multiple leukemias and interacts with DNA to produce harmful mutations, let alone whatever else is down there. Yes, there may be companies that can decontaminate and clean up the messes, but on a windy day, as people have said, school children are walking by, people are passing by, and we live there. A lot of retired people, 100% of the time. Our bodies are exposed to this. The American Petroleum Institute stated in 1948, it is generally considered that the only absolutely safe concentration for benzene is 0. None. Our EPA and OSHA have guidelines for this. This is going to exceed it. Remember, our bodies are exposed to this without special breathing equipment. According to the city, this new fire station will be one of the largest in the station, answering 216 emergency plus who knows how many calls per day. And it is a state law. I've worked in the ER. I know they have to blast when they go out. That is the law. It is a scientific fact.
We can finish your scientific fact thought.
My scientific fact is this, that there is hearing loss and damage within 10 seconds at 120 decibels, which is what sirens are going at.
Thank you,
I
ma'am.
have no desire to be the collateral damage for the city.
Thank you, ma'am. Sure.
Okay. My name is Scott Simpson, and I am a resident of the house that is directly across from the street of the proposed fire station. And what I just wanted to say is that it is proven that siren exposure will cause hearing loss. And I don't understand this because if I'm in my backyard playing with my dogs, I mean, like, what ear protection am I going to have when I hear sirens coming near my house every day? And the World Health Organization clearly describes hearing loss with this kind of sound exposure, and this is a quote from them, is, "A ringing in the ears called tinnitus commonly occurs after noise exposure, and it often becomes permanent." And let's just say, if I do eventually begin to have a ringing in my ears, this will affect me because I'm a musician, and they say that you might even begin to not appreciate music as much as you could, and this could affect my career possibly. And I'm here to speak on behalf of all children, and when kids are in school, you have kids walking down the street. I think I heard someone say this earlier, is that the fire trucks, when they're going near these kids, you don't know what could happen if the kids, I don't know. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
How old are you?
14.
Good job.
Summer break right now?
What?
You're on summer
Yeah.
break? You did a good job.
I think this is Dad next. This Dad?
Hi, gentlemen. I'm
Mr.
Brian
Simpson.
Simpson. If you want to grab this piece of paper I passed out, just to give you a visual without reiterating what you've already heard, but to give you a visual, you can see, I just printed this out this morning from Google Maps. This is the intersection. I took the liberty of superimposing the fire truck leaving where the station is proposed to be, and where it is headed is my backyard, which is about 30 feet from the front of that fire truck. The crosswalk that you see at the front of the picture is also where these children walk home from school, to and from school every day. So it gives you more of an idea of what's going on here. And quite obviously, you can see that a 6-foot wall is meaningless there because there's a 6-foot wall out there already, or a 7-foot wall in some cases. It would have to be a 25-foot wall to make a difference, and I don't want to live in the shadow of a wall like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, our next few speakers, Stephanie Sandoval, Lisa Willinger, that is, and Zarek Dietz. Please come forward. Stephanie Sandoval? Zarek? Zarek. And Lisa, welcome.
Thank you.
You want to start?
I'll start. First of all, I do want to say that we do love our firemen. But as sound was touched on, they talked about sound. One thing to keep in mind is sound, like light, travels in a straight line. So keep in mind. So you're talking about a 6-foot wall, and then you're talking about a truck which is higher than 6 feet, and a building that's much higher than 6 feet. So any sound that's up higher will be traveling a straight line, as well as the lights will be traveling a straight line. So that means the lights on the truck, which are above a 6-foot wall, will be flashing into these people's backyards on a regular basis, even if the sound isn't going, which they're supposed to be doing required by law. So they'll have lights flashing in their bedroom windows every single time those trucks pull out. Outreach has not been done well by this organization right from the beginning. Even when we reached out to them in the beginning and said, hey, look, you're not doing anything for us. No one's contacted us. They did have a meeting. They even said that, I'm sorry, the one mistake we did make is we didn't post any signs on the location that a fire station is proposed for this area. We'll make sure things like that don't happen in the future. Well, this is over a year later, and there's still no signs letting the neighborhood know that this is a proposed location for a fire station. So it means the neighbors, everyone around has no idea, that hasn't been involved with this, that there's even a proposed fire station going in that area, because there's no signs on that fence anywhere. Now, there was an article way back in 2009 of Cardenas saying that the best location for this fire station would be on Van Nuys Boulevard because of exits and entry. So, I mean, there's articles from the LA Times of him stating that. Why this moved, we don't know. There was plenty of spaces back in the day, a couple years ago, of empty buildings. There was a Dodge building. There was all these buildings that were vacant, huge lots, vacant all over the place. And suddenly, why this place next to residence was chosen. I mean, this city is about the people. Let us listen to us, the people who make the votes around here. There actually is even a street services lot that is close to Sepulveda out of the residential area, large lot, about the same size as this one currently, owned by the city. They could even swap the situation. Street services wouldn't make any noise going in and out, and the fire department could be there. They even have tanks built already there.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Hi, welcome.
Hi. Let's see what.
Your name, please, for the
My
record.
name is Lisa Willinger,
thank you.
and I've been a resident since 1999. When I moved in, it was a neighborhood in transition, and I'm pleased to say that we have transitioned to a lovely neighborhood of families and people who get together and help each other out. We have events where we get together as a neighborhood. We throw a little carnival once a year. We do community yard sales. It's a wonderful, wonderful little neighborhood, and I would so hate to see it impacted negatively by this huge superstation that was, in our opinion, snuck in. And it will be within earshot and eyeshot of houses with little children. I have a 4-year-old daughter who will one day be walking to school, and I do not want to see these kids impacted negatively by this superstation. I mean, I'm sure none of you would want a superstation in your neighborhood. They can build it another place. They can find another place for this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Hi, welcome. Yes, Stephanie Sandoval.
Yes, Stephanie. Thank you very much for allowing us to speak on this topic again. I recently purchased a home on Tobias Avenue about half a block from the new proposed site about 8 months ago, so June or July of last year, so maybe a year. I didn't know about the fire station because one of the problems with it is that unfortunately only 8 homes were notified, if that. And according to the declaration, as it sits today, the new noise mitigation report, it's still considered a commercial zone, not a residential zone, and says only 3 homes will be impacted. But my home will be impacted. I can hear sirens today as they're going up and down the street, but it's rather infrequent, which is a great blessing of this neighborhood. One of the other problems with this report is that the sound is really misrepresented and misreported. The report concludes that the noise will be 87 decibels, and hearing loss begins at 85 decibels. That's a common statement you'll see everywhere. Los Angeles City requires that at a concert, a sign be posted when noise be loud, equal to or louder than 95 decibels. A siren is 120 decibels. It's designed to be heard. So, as others have stated, this is something that's going to be impacting our daily livelihood, and we're not to date on the map of the report. And then third, the noise mitigation, frankly, is not substantial. Since the neighborhood is not considered, you don't see a lot of talk about any noise mitigation apart from this 6-foot wall. But according to the Federal Highway Administration, a wall the length of a sound barrier must be at least 8 times as long as the distance from the sound source, and any openings in the barriers destroy the effectiveness. The city responded to my statement, making them aware of this, and simply said, we're not obligated to abide by the research of the Federal Highway Administration, which I think is a total disregard. We've done a lot of research as a city and community, and I think it needs to be referenced and used to our benefit.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to call up 2 representatives from CD6 and CD4, Jim D'Antona and also Tommy Newman. Yes, we're getting more cards. I want to hear from both council offices first. You want to defer? Well, wait. Okay. Okay, let's bring up Frank Lima, Robina Svol. Robina? Oh boy. Cardillo Marez? Come on up. Thank you. How are you? Good to see you. Robina, we'll start with you.
Thank you very much. My name is Rabina Sewell. I'm a resident for over 25 years, and I'm also the executive director and founder of California Safe Schools, a children's environmental health organization. I want to take this time also to thank Mr. Espinoza for his professionalism and in notifying residents about this committee hearing today, because that has unfortunately not always been the case. And I mentioned my being with California Safe Schools because, again, for over 2 decades, I clearly know how to request to be notified and sign up for hearings. But there's been a sadly, tremendous lack of transparency and notification to this entire process, and public documents that should be made readily available to the public, even when making Public Record Act requests, have not been provided, which is very disturbing. Most of this has been with the Public Works Department. The site on Oxnard and Vesper poses, as other people have said, an enormous health and safety concerns for the community and for our extremely honorable firemen who every day are putting their lives on the line for us. There's been no consideration at all of cumulative impacts or synergistic effects of the multiple other environmental sources in the area. And this truly constitutes a taking, because it would make backyards and outdoor use of residents nearly impossible, because this particular site is proposing over 113 calls. I don't want to misrepresent that, but roughly it would come to over 200 calls per day. Our 14th Amendment promises that everyone is entitled to equal protection under the law. It doesn't say not Sherman Oaks, or Van Nuys residents, or the vulnerable children, hundreds of which pass through daily on their way to and from school. So thank you for this time, and I hope you consider.
Thank you. Carrillo.
Yes, sir.
Candido.
Thank you, Mr.
Good to see you, sir.
What I want to state is that Candido Maris is a member of the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council, and I also work with a food bank in Van Nuys, and I've had a love affair with the Van Nuys community for 40 years. And as I've stated before, it's the people. And what I found when this issue came before the neighborhood council, I went there and studied. We spent a lot of time in the area, and it's one of the finest communities. It's what Los Angeles is all about. If you would go there and meet the people, they're outstanding. They have individuals, day workers, who are right there on the corner. And some of these families are over there giving them food. They don't make them feel like outsiders. If I was to take you to other areas, they want those people out. They consider them the dregs of society. Not this community. This community is outreaching, and they're very caring. And so that's why I feel so strong about this, because it's quality of life issues. Whether it's in San Pedro or it's the Chatsworth or East Side or West Side, this is something that affects all of us. And if we don't care about people in other districts, in other areas, then we're not going to care about the people in our area. And so, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, what I'm asking is, I would hope that the council office, because truly I feel that Ms. Martinez is doing a wonderful job, to sit down with this group again and start from the beginning. There's not a rush for this. There's not a rush. We could work this out. I think that we could come up with a better agreement, a better decision, and I think together all of us could come up with a better solution. And, there are going to be the people that are going to speak and say that I don't belong in the area, and I keep telling them, take the broom out of my hand, take the graffiti materials out of my hand, feed the people in your area, and I'd be more than happy to go back to Port Ranch. But my heart is in Van Nuys, and I hope that the council office in this area, this group could work together to find a better solution.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, that's fine. Frank Lima.
Chairman Buscaino, honorable committee members, Cedillo and Price. My name is Frank Lehman. I proudly serve as the president, representing United Firefighters of Los Angeles City, representing over 3,000 firefighters, paramedics in the LA City Fire Department. We're here today to speak in favor of the relocation of Fire Station 39 to the new proposed location near Oxnard and Vesper Streets, where a state-of-the-art facility will be built for our firefighters and the benefit of the community. Members, I had the pleasure of working out of Fire Station 39 for several years, off and on, in several ranks, going through the department as an apparatus operator and a captain. It's one of the oldest stations in the city, and the community out there really is supportive of our work. However, we are in support of the desperately needed new location and upgraded facility, which will be nearly 19,000 square feet and have space for 2 engines, 1 ladder truck, 2 rescue ambulances, a command vehicle, and adequate accommodations for our firefighters at the station, where these men and women spend more than 1/3 of their lives at. The new station will improve the overall health and safety of our firefighters as well. Fire stations and firefighters are good neighbors. It was mentioned earlier, Fire Station 48. I've worked in the Pacific Palisades and Lincoln Heights, Baldwin Hills with fire stations right there in the community, and we've never had any problems. I have no reason to believe that things will be different at new Fire Station 39. The new station will allow our firefighters and paramedics to function better as we work to save the lives and property in the communities that we serve. It's something that is needed for our city, and I'm here to urge the members of this committee to support this matter. And fire department was decimated several years ago with permanent cuts across the city. Council District 6 was one of the few council districts that did not suffer any cuts, and it's hard to believe that Angelenos will not welcome a firehouse closer to their locations. We don't come out of fire stations blaring our sirens, especially at night, and the vehicle code states clearly that all that's required for an emergency vehicle is a steady burning light visible from 1,000 feet. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome John Camera and Mario Acosta. Please come forward.
Right after this. Right after this item.
Your name, please?
Yes, hi, I'm John Camera, Van Nuys Neighborhood Council Board Member.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. I'm here in opposition to moving Fire Station 39 to Oxnard. I feel that as a community, we can come up with a better solution to serve all of Van Nuys. Thank you.
Thank you. Mario Acosta?
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm here also to speak against the fire station. I live in the neighborhood. I'm also a real estate agent working in that neighborhood specifically. And I just feel that, the plan to put this station within 50 feet of residential property, facing directly towards residential property, I think is not the best idea. And I think there may be some alternate solutions for getting that problem taken care of. In addition to that, I think moving the station to the southern end of its district, its service area, also is going to leave the residents in the northern end of the district underserved and increase their response time as well. And also it's going to be below the Metro line station, so now when they make calls up to the north, they're going to have to cross the Metro bus line. And who knows what that means. I don't know if they have to stop, they have to wait, the buses have to wait. I don't really understand how that's all going to play out. In addition to that, I wanted to enter into the record, I do have a petition here that 230 residents in the area have signed saying that they don't want the station moved into that.
Yeah, that's Mr. Clerk as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Maria Cesar, Monica Alenkno, Don Schultz, please come forward. Good afternoon, welcome. We'll start with you, ma'am.
Thank you, council and committee members. I am Maria Schultzer. I am what previous speakers have referred to as one of the elderly women and residents who don't know what's going on north of the fire station location. So for the record, it should be noted that the Sherman Oaks residents who oppose the relocation of Fire Station 39 were, until July 2009, residents of and part of Van Nuys. They petitioned the city for a name change to Sherman Oaks because, as their representative Lorette Healy stated so eloquently, we share common complexion and values with Sherman Oaks. Nonetheless, as we all know, Los Angeles Fire Department serves the entire city of Los Angeles. It chooses its location where there is the greatest need. New Fire Station 39 will be an asset and benefit to Van Nuys, as well as to Sherman Oaks and the entire Valley community. Finally, based on numerous public meetings regarding this issue, it is my informed impression that the opposition have presented their opposition with hyperbole, disinformation, and melodrama. For example, 2 examples, they submitted a Mickey Mouse survey into the council file where they claimed to have made a survey for a proposed alternative location. They claimed they surveyed a 1,000-foot radius where they, and I quote, talked with all the residents within 1,000 feet of the alternative proposed site. And they concluded that the majority of these residents
Finish your thought.
supported the alternative site. However, they only, now this 1,000-foot radius would include thousands of residents, yet they only submitted 24 signatures
Thank you.
which oppose it.
Thank you.
So we support this station, and I hope you're not pressured to,
Thank
to
you,
make
ma'am.
changes.
Name for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Monica Alexenko. To give you a sense of the area, Oxnard Boulevard is a wide street, and it is, in and of itself, from curb to curb, 80 feet in width. Oxnard Boulevard is a highly industrial area with businesses on the boulevard. 1 block south of it is 90% alley. The second block south of Oxnard Boulevard, up to 14721, is also industrial, and the new fire station location is set for to be built at 14600. We've heard that locations further north would be better. However, the suggestions would place the fire station on narrow streets, having them exit onto Victory Boulevard, a heavily trafficked, gridlocked, designated area. Recently, we heard that the new fire station would constitute a takeover of the area for those opposing the new Van Nuys fire station. If anything, the Van Nuys community continues to experience people pushing to take over our community. It is our community for those of us who actually live in Van Nuys. By virtue of some scurrilous maneuvers, we now have more people on our neighborhood council who live outside of Van Nuys than in our community. We are grateful for the City Council doing the right thing and supporting the new Fire Station 39 for the betterment and safety of our community and that of our surrounding neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, council members. My name is Don Schultz. I'm a past president of the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council. I've lived in the San Fernando Valley since 1965, going on 50 years. And for decades, I've watched the almost inability for Fire Station number 39 to get in and out of their location. It's a small location. It's an old fire station. Moving to a 1-acre site on a much wider street makes absolute sense. It will serve the community in a much more effective manner. And we're hoping that you will support that move. A suggestion I might make, which has worked in other land use issues, possibly a recommendation of looking at this 6 months after it's in place to see what other impacts can be mitigated 6 months to a year after it's in place, might work for the community and might defray some of the concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call up Jim D'Antona and representing Councilwoman Nuria Martinez's office, and also Tommy Newman representing Councilmember LaBonge's office to come forward to say a few words on this item.
Thank you, committee members. I appreciate your diligence in this hearing, and want to thank you for the previous recommendations when we were here to go back out and do further outreach with the community. In 2009, we saw that the efficiencies of BOE and the fire department allowed us to have 2 new stations built. Fire Station 39 is one, and as all of you who've been to Van Nuys know, that fire station exits right into Van Nuys City Hall on that small Sylvan Street, and as it gets crowded in that court area, a little difficult to maneuver. Obviously, what we'd like to do, and we think is the best plan, is to move this fire station down to Oxnard, where it's a wide street, a signal interrupter can be input, and allow the fire station to move more effectively. As you heard last time, there were a lot of concerns about the impacts. Bureau of Engineering did go out to the site, did stand in front of the walls, did take sound measurements, understand what the current levels were and what elevated levels would be. That's why we're here with a mitigated negative declaration instead of the original negative declaration, because the community concerns have been heard, and been mitigated. One of the concerns also that they raised was that there's hazardous materials in the soil. There's one particular portion of the site where 20 to 25 feet deep, there could potentially be hazardous materials, but this station, as brought forward by Bureau of Engineering, has told us that the excavation would go no more than 5 to 7 feet. So that's why it was not in the negative declaration. It wouldn't be impacted, and therefore wouldn't need the mitigations put in. But in order to let the community know about everything that's in there and be forthright and transparent, they did put that into the mitigated negative declaration. Wasn't trying to hide anything, just didn't seem to be, there wasn't a need to mitigate. Again, I think the key point here is the other sites that have been recommended have been investigated. The fire stations looked at them, Bureau of Engineering's looked at them, and the impacts, whether traffic, noise, whatever, are more severe in all those other areas, and this gives us our best opportunity to build a new station and serve the community better. So Councilwoman Martinez would really appreciate your support in moving this forward so that we can get Fire Station 39 moved forward in the 9-month delay that we've given it. To hear the concerns is valid, and hope we've addressed those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Tommy?
Good afternoon, council members. Tommy Newman, one of the deputies for Councilman Labange in the area. We were late to this game because of redistricting, so the process was relatively well down the road at that point. Everybody you've heard from today has been a CD4, just about everybody you've heard from today has been a CD4 resident. So obviously, we've been listening and hearing. The councilman requested that the noise study be added at the last Public Works Committee meeting, which was about 10 months ago, also led to about a 10-month delay in the process so that more information could be shared and refinements to the project could occur, which is what we believe has happened. And so the councilman does support the project.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Cedillo?
So this is your new district?
Correct.
You inherited this?
We did.
Good for you. Yeah. This is your old district?
We've never had that portion, the south of it, but CD6 has always had this Oxnard site.
Got it. And then this is a, so you've done mitigations as you came in, as you inherited the new area?
Yeah, we held 2 community meetings that previously weren't scheduled. I think that Mr. Kawaguchi left that out when you asked what you had done since the last meeting. We had 2 community meetings, one of which was chaired by BOE, one of which was run by me, and then also the wall addition to the project, which I've been assured by BOE is a flexible height. It doesn't have to be limited to 6 feet.
Right.
So that's something that we're happy to hear. We would like for it to be something that's worked out amicably with those neighbors. Whether or not that's possible remains to be seen. But it's in the project, and so we're happy that it's in there.
So Sandoval is new, Sandoval is flexible, could be after it's built, you still have the capacity to revisit that as was suggested by one of the...
Or built taller to begin with.
Right. And then the excavation, the environmental concerns that for whatever exists with respect to concerns that have been raised, that the Bureau of Engineering tells you that because you are not excavating below 7 feet, that then the impact is mitigated, if not. Correct?
That's how, yeah, I think Bureau of Engineering can speak to it more, but yes, that was how it's explained to us.
And then of all the alternatives that were on the map, this is the best alternative that you've determined, both collaborating between the 2 departments.
Correct. In fact, Van Nuys Neighborhood Council did propose an area. Unfortunately, the spot that we had looked specifically at that spot before, and it drops all the fire trucks right into the wrong lane of traffic at peak hours would be an absolute traffic gridlock.
A lot of concern about children and safe routes. Your thoughts about this, incidents that you've had with the department, what happens when you come out with your sirens, how do children respond, how do teachers respond, etc.?
So where Fire Station 39 is now, just east of the fire station is a very dense community. It's the courthouse. There's a lot of foot traffic through that area. The new area would not have nearly that amount of traffic, foot traffic, and the great training our firefighters receive, do let them know, figure out how to get out fast and without endangering lives. Plus, whether they hit that siren at second 1 or 10 seconds when they're a little ways down the road into a full industrial area, can make a big difference in terms of that sound. And everything outside of that area, aside of this residential that's across the street, is industrial zone. Very heavy industrial stuff going on, and car dealerships. So there is a specific piece right outside the door, but once we get past that, we move into industrial areas.
Are there any specific... I know 2 stations in my district, 7th and Alvarado, one of the most dense areas of the city, and then up in Highland Park, Figueroa and York, very dense. Playground, library, schools. Is there anything particular about proximity to schools and playgrounds and fire stations? This is a concern that people have. I minimize it, but I think information is helpful and having people appreciate the circumstance.
Specifically surrounding this site, children may use this as an avenue to get to a school, but for the most part, the area does not have parks. Those are more further south and much further north. And schools, for the most part, I know a children's community school north of here, but again, by 4 or 5 blocks. Right around this area isn't a spot where kids would be playing, because again, it is more of a heavy industrial, and Van Nuys Boulevard right off the street there. And I think it was one of the key considerations as to why, besides no building actually being here, we didn't have to knock anything down to take. It's also very heavy commercial industrial.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Price?
Thinking of the testimony, the placement of our fire stations is always important, especially as it impacts the community. Just this week, for example, I had an opportunity to visit 2 stations in my district, Fire Station 33 on 64th and Main, and 21 on 51st and Central, both in dense areas, dense neighborhoods. 51, in fact, adjacent to a school. So it's always a balance. But I think there's been a long, detailed discussion on this project. How long has it been sort of in motion? And can you give us some idea of how many community meetings have been held? Because several have indicated that there's no notice, not enough notice. Could either of you fill us in on that, or someone else provide some information on the number of hearings that were held by a variety of groups? And how long this process has been in motion?
I think that our office on the CD4 side was extremely disappointed with the outreach that BOE conducted. Yes, they met their legally required minimums at the outset of the project, but there are larger impacts to this project, and so I think that at the outset, at the very beginning, before... When was this first?
2009 was when there was identified funds available to do it.
Voter-approved funds, all right?
Right.
From my understanding.
Yeah.
So the only 2 community meetings that were held at the insistence of CD4 once we had taken over the area. So those came later in the process.
And how many?
There were 2, both in the evening, both well attended, both in relatively close proximity to these neighborhoods on Van Nuys Boulevard.
Yeah, and the process started back in 2009. Obviously, that was just identifying that we needed a new fire station. Then became the process of trying to identify where and purchase. That probably took till 11, 12 to kind of figure all that out. And then I think September 2013, CD4 did ask for, and it was happening probably, the community started with about, I want to say it was June, July, August there, where it came to the Board of Public Works. This committee sent back, and brings us here today.
Okay. Well, thank you. It was the direction of this committee to go out with public comment is closed, sir. Thank you. Thank you. No, sir. Public comment is closed. Thank you. Respectfully, thank you. You spoke already, sir. Thank you. 2 minutes. It was the direction of this committee to direct the city staff to go back out and address some of the mitigating concerns of the community, and we appreciate that effort. I want to thank those who spoke on this issue, both for and against, for coming out and expressing your opinion on item number 1. My first interaction with a firefighter and my first experience on a fire truck was at 48's. My Uncle Paul lives at the 17th and Grand, 50 feet from 48's, and that was this 48's is surrounded by residential, front, rear, sides, and I feel that this fire station will be a good fit not only for the city but also for the community that's going to serve. I want to ask colleagues for a motion on this item. Okay, moved by Mr. Price, second by Mr. Cedillo. This item will go forth as approved unanimously, and we'll send it to City Council. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Okay, let's. We're going to go to the special agenda. I do see my colleague, Mr. Blumenfield, here to speak on. We'll take both special items, please. Mr. Clerk, if you can read that.
Item number 1 on this. So will we be recessing?
We'll be recess. Yes, thank you. Recess our normal, regular agenda and move regular meeting, and then go to the special. And just out of the respect of Mr. Bloomfield, who's here to speak on the special agenda.
Great. And item number 1 is a motion from Councilmember Blumenfield and Councilmember Weezer relative to developing and presenting a pilot sidewalk repair reconstruction program using alternative sidewalk materials. Item number 2 is a motion from Councilmember Blumenfield and Councilmember O'Farrell relative to identifying alternate paving materials capable of reducing the urban heat island effect.
Mr. Blumenfield, welcome.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you hearing this item and moving forward. It's a little confusing because Current Price's name tags in front of Mr. Cedillo in front of Current Price, and if I didn't know you both for many, many years, I might get confused by that, but but I think I can figure it out. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on both of these items. And in fact, I'm going to speak relatively quickly and leave it to the folks at Street Services because I'm simultaneously in Energy and Environment Committee right now, and we're hearing matters. But the reason why I wanted to come personally about these are to me are 2 very exciting proposals. They both have to do with trying to make our city and the materials that we use smarter and move us into the 21st century in ways that can be a win-win situation. The first one has to do with alternative materials for sidewalks. And I brought with me a little show and tell, an example of an alternative material. This material is actually being used, this type of material is being used in Santa Monica. They have over 20,000 square feet of this material. What it is instead of just using the old concrete sidewalks, because concrete's about as cutting edge as the wheel these days, particularly in spots where the ficus trees have broken the streets, and in order to fix it, you need to get a jackhammer in there, very expensive, grind down the roots, and then relay the concrete. There is new materials such as this tile here that are made of post-consumer materials that allow for groundwater recharge because they're seams when they're all hooked together, and they allow for maintenance. So when a tree root grows in, instead of having to jackhammer the street, they can literally lift up a tile or 2 with a little tool, grind the root down, and then place the tile back. So over a long time period, they really pay for themselves in terms of maintenance. And also they have other technologies like on the back here. You can see how there's these seams in here, and these actually direct the roots so that they don't go directly up, and they can direct the roots in different directions. So it's less likely to buckle, as well as easier to fix when and if it does buckle. So these are long-term, ideas that can save us money. It's not pie in the sky stuff. Santa Monica has 20,000 square feet of it. cities across the nation are using different types of material. I'm agnostic as terms of the actual type of material. I just want us to move forward on a pilot program to get street services to start using alternative materials. This particular one is Terracon, and it's been used successfully in other cities. The second motion is similar. It deals with asphalt, and it talks about looking at alternative materials to have cool streets. And I don't just mean sort of cool in the sunglasses jazz kind of way. I mean cool in temperature-wise. We have, particularly in my part of the Los Angeles, the urban heat island effect,
Right.
where we have so much asphalt that the temperature is extremely hot in the West Valley and all parts of the city. And using different materials can literally change the temperature of a district, which results not only in a better quality of life, but savings across the board for constituents. So that's one about talking about the cost effectiveness of that material and getting them to look into that. And then the first one is about a pilot program with the alternative materials. And I appreciate you giving me the time to bring them both forward, and I urge an aye vote.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Blumenfield, for moving these, authoring these motions. And, when we look at 40% of our sidewalks are in failed condition, we need to look at alternative ways of fixing them and also sustaining them as well. When it comes to, improving the environment with your suggestion, and also with, as you know, Save Our Streets. When we look at the litigation and the ongoing lawsuits, we're paying more with our lawsuits than fixing them. So we need to look at alternative materials to address the issue, and I can't thank you for your leadership. Can't thank you enough for your leadership in moving this to committee. Appreciate that. And
how long has Santa Monica uses this?
They don't use it everywhere, but they have, as I understand.
How long have they been doing it?
For several years. I mean, someone at Street Services may know the answer to that question. I don't know the answer to that question, but I know that it's been placed for several years, and it's been successful.
we have Mr. Olive here. If we can call Mr. Olive to the table and ask him some questions. Give us your thoughts on, and I know the city in the past have used alternative materials with our sidewalks, specifically in Boyle Heights, rubber. It's been installed in 2004, and permeable material was used on Bimbini Place in 2007, 2008. How have these two projects have held up over the course of the last several years? Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Councilman Price. Ron Olive, Assistant Director with the Bureau of Street Services. Let me back up just a second. So I apologize for our late submittal of these two reports. The scheduling kind of surprised us a little bit, but I want to thank Mr. Espinoza for doing everything he could to upload it to the Council File Management System online, even though we didn't link it to the agenda. The answers to your question, again, the report for item number 1 really addresses two previous reports that we presented under different council files. One talks a lot about, from 2008, design considerations, technical information, site-specific requirements, what have you, and different applications for particularly permeable and porous materials with a focus on infiltration capture. It also talks about the formation of the Green Streets Committee back in 2007, which was led by our former Commissioner Paula Daniels and now is led by our Public Works Commissioner Barbara Romero. So that continues on a monthly basis with multiple departments, nonprofits, and interested stakeholders. So there's a continuing effort looking at alternative materials and different green street type elements that could be fit into street improvement projects and street maintenance projects. More specifically to the question here is the report we did in 2011. So the report we submitted today actually takes excerpts and pictures and I think of some of the locations you mentioned. You mentioned the poured rubber sidewalk back in 2004 around the Evergreen Cemetery in CD14. The porous concrete locations that we had both in Bimini Place and Heliotrope Drive, which was grant funded, and CD12 actually gave us some discretionary money for an application on Tampa Avenue back in 2008, I believe. And also,
So how are they holding up today?
Yeah, the last point I wanted to make is you also see the one application on page 4 that the Music Center funded, and this is actually just the previous version to the Terracon tile that Councilman Bloomfield showed. This was, I believe they were under a different name at the time, but this one here is holding up pretty well. We kind of went forward on this a little bit on faith. We did have some concerns with the friction material was really sprinkled on the surface, if you will. It wasn't integrated throughout the depth of the tile, so we do have some concerns, not so much on the durability and strength, but on the friction, if you will. So when it rains, is it slippery? Is there a slip and fall increased hazard? We really haven't studied that in depth. On the other locations, that's the recommendation, really, number 2 that we have in our report, is we really have not done a great job going out with our sister Bureau of Engineering and going and evaluating some of these previous installations. So not just how they look, but physically how they're holding up. Are there any unseen problems, potential problems that are arisen? Is it doing what it was designed to do as far as infiltrating water or keeping keeping a safe environment, safe for joggers or for the porous pavement has a rough texture, a rough surface. Is there an increased hazard there as far as if someone falls down or they're going to get hurt? So the answer to your question in a long way, I apologize, is we don't fully know. We know that some of the rubber tiles that were installed 12 to 15 years ago have not lasted. They've failed. In fact, we just got a complaint this week, I think in the West Valley area, that that they're just totally useless at this point. So we really need to kind of work with, again, Bureau of Engineering, the General Services Department Standards Division, who does all the testing, to make sure that we have, at least some initial testing done to make us comfortable that we're not going to have an additional liability risk, additional concern with, potential durability issues.
So, Ron, walk me through this.
Okay.
Knowing that the material has failed over the course of the last, 5 to 10 years, has the street services presented to council alternatives? Obviously, the current infrastructure is not working.
I would say just on that first generation, 12 to 15 years ago.
12 to 15 years.
Yeah. The other ones, to my knowledge, the ones that are featured here and pictured here, are doing fine.
Okay. And why haven't we, knowing that they're doing fine, why haven't we gone citywide with the
Councilman,
plan,
as you know,
the material?
As you know, there has been no city funding for sidewalk repair for 5 years. So we had a lot of, in both of these previous reports, we had a lot of ideas on how we wanted to pursue, additional research at different pilots. We really haven't had a lot of opportunity until this year when we had $10 million set aside, which we only started spending a couple months ago. There really hasn't been any opportunity. Now, on grant-funded projects where we have streetscape projects funded by Metro and Caltrans and others, there are limited opportunities to try different material, but mainly in median islands, maybe in a controlled local area, because if we're doing spot repairs on the sidewalk, it doesn't make sense to do alternative materials when you're doing spot repairs. If you're doing an entire block, an entire corridor, then it makes a lot more sense. So
give me the price breakdown between alternative, any material other than cement when fixing sidewalks.
So for our direct cost for street services to install, we estimate about $20 a square foot installed. We're estimating a little bit higher for, as a general rule for some of these other materials. I think we decided $24 to $32 a square foot. That's for the initial install. Now, again, as Councilman Bloomfield eloquently elaborated on, that there are a lot of advantages to long-term maintenance if the product holds up. Right. You can take these tiles out, root prune, make localized fixes. Once concrete gets lifted by roots, it's useless, and pretty much you have to do something more with the tree. On the other hand, concrete is a very long, proven, durable, and non-slip resistant material. So until we get some, I don't want to say assurance, but some reasonable, sense that materials will meet the criteria that
I'm sorry.
we sets up.
Walk me through this. If it's working for Santa Monica, why can't it work for us?
Well, it could.
But why, I mean, when you say it's a funding issue, have you presented other options before City Council? For funding the rubber panels, recycled mixed plastics, poured rubber?
We really haven't, again, we haven't had the opportunities to implement the alternative materials. Again, this new Terragon product has not gone through the city testing process yet. We haven't really collaborated with Santa Monica on what their, maybe they have some lab certification information that we can inherit, we can use and be comfortable with it. But again, maybe with the funding that's been set aside for next year, maybe there could be a decision to use some of this product and at least some of that money. But again, we have to make sure that it meets city standards to some point.
Got it. And that's folding in BOE as well?
Yeah, we work with BOE on that and General Services. But again, we're happy always to do pilots. We just hate to go out and do a large project.
I know, but we've been doing pilots for 10 years.
I understand.
That's kind of the frustrating part.
Never, to my knowledge, none of these products have made it into the standard specifications that Public Works uses.
Is decomposed granite ADA accessible?
It's addressed in the report. We're not 100% sure, but we think there's some concern there.
Okay. Mr. Price?
No, I think we are all anxious to identify alternatives that can be cost-effective alternatives. Yeah. On this era of repairing sidewalks is a real quality of life issue that impacts every neighborhood. Objectively kind of way and make some determination. I know the city has an asphalt plant. Asphalt becomes favor. This is an opportunity for us to seriously explore alternatives could be cost-effective so that we can deliver these services in a way that is cost-effective and satisfy our constituents.
We very much agree. We very much want to be a participant in that.
I'd like to know, finally, what the Bureau is doing proactively looking at alternative materials and looking at investigating new products. And if you can include that in the report back, what exactly the Bureau is doing to seek other alternative measures.
We can get more specific on that. I think
Thank you.
The second report, which was, again, originally presented as a response to the Save Our Streets LA request. So it goes into some of the efforts we made on national surveys of what other cities, other consultant studies have done, especially for the heat island effect, lighter colored pavements. We have not found anything that is really an application for streets. It's more for, again, light traffic, walkways, bikeways, what have you. We're continuing to reach out to vendors, but we're finding restrictions on limits on miles per hour, on traffic loads, what have you. So we're continuing those efforts. We're working now with our current vendor for slurry seal. We think that might be one of the best opportunities, and they are starting to research and develop to see if they can develop something that's cost effective. And we may also reach out on an RFQ process to see if anybody else out there is willing to develop something.
Yeah, I respect the work that you do, you and the entire Bureau, and Nazario as well, but I encourage the Bureau to be innovative, think outside the box and looking at ways, because obviously what we currently have in dealing with our sidewalks, and 40% of our sidewalks are failing, is just clearly not working. So I'm anxious to hear back from
I
the
agree,
board.
Councilman. I think, again, the opportunity with the $20 million set aside next year is, plus what's
That'll help.
left over this year,
Right.
is going to be a huge help.
Thank you, Mr. Hollis. We have one comment on special item number 2, if I can call up Mark Haswell. Mark? Thank you, Ron.
Hello, council members. Mark Caswell of Climate Resolve. I just wanted to echo what you heard from staff. Climate Resolve has been working closely with organizations like Western Emulsions, which is the slurry seal provider for BSS. We've been working closely with them. We heard about a week ago that they are right on the cusp at 99% of finding an appropriate material that will meet the coefficient of friction and will meet all the safety standards for both low speed, medium speed, and high speed roads and high traffic roads. That will be a material that will be reflective of solar energy, which will help to mitigate the urban heat island effect. We believe we're very promising. Results have been coming in the past few weeks, and we're going to continue to work on that with BSS and with you all on that. But we are definitely very hopeful that that is moving forward in a great way, even without the Save Our Streets initiative moving forward. So thank you for hearing this important matter, and we'll look forward to the next report back.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, without objection, we'll approve both special items 1 and 2 and adjourn the special meeting. And
Mr. Chair, 2 reports were submitted by Street Services. The first one, for item number 1, does have recommendations, and we can approve that one. The second one doesn't really have recommendations, so would you like to note and
let's
file?
note and file the second one and move on item number 1 with the recommendations from Bureau of Street Services.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's reconvene our regular meeting, and move to. Let's see where we're at.
Item number 3, I believe.
2-3.
Item number 3 is a report from the city attorney and ordinance relative to finding that the public interest and necessity require the acquisition of property and improvements located at 2141 and 1845 North Soda Street to be used to widen the approach to the Soda Street Bridge widening over Valley Boulevard project.
Morning, sir.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Deputy City Attorney Peter Langsfeld. Item number 3 concerns the widening of Soda Street as it approaches the Soda Street Bridge over Valley Boulevard. The bridge will be widened by 25 feet approximately, and the approach will also require the widening of Soda Street by 25 feet as it approaches the bridge from the north.
So this is another eminent domain item. Where are we at with the property owners? How long have we been talking to these folks?
Several years. I spoke to counsel for LAUSD, the owner of the property, and the manner in which they acquired the property requires that it be condemned. It cannot be sold.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
Okay. Move to approve the item number 3 without objection. Thank you for your report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I think you'll look at that arts and parks. Okay, item number 4, right?
Item number 4 is a communication from the mayor relative to the negotiation and execution of contracts and amendments with organizations that provide gang prevention services in designated gang reduction and youth development zones and or secondary areas, and acceptance of a grant award for the Second Chance Act Juvenile Reentry Program.
Good afternoon. I think since our last meeting, you've added a team player to the grid office, right? Edo?
Yes,
Edo.
we have.
There he is. Eduardo Soriano Hewitt, now batting. Welcome aboard, Edo. It's a great addition, man.
Agreed.
Okay. I'll start with your report.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to come back and appear before you. I think I was last here in February while I was the interim director of GRID. I'm happy to be here now as the director of GRID, since the mayor announced a couple weeks ago that I would be staying on in the position. So I look forward to the future of working with you and your committee to take GRID into the future. I think GRID's been around 7 years now, and so I think we've got a lot to do in maybe the next 6 or 7 years to take GRID to the next level, to work with our community-based organizations, all of our stakeholders in the areas most impacted by gangs and gang violence, as well as our partners in LAPD, Rec and Parks, to make sure that we can deliver the best possible services and continue the historic reduction in gang violence. So, as you'll see in the report from the CAO and our transmittal, we're looking to do several things, including renew our contracts with our prevention and intervention providers in the grid zones and the secondary grid zones throughout the city. We're fortunate that despite the budget reduction for grid this year that was 5%, that we were able to find administrative cost savings and other savings so that we did not have to have any reduction in services. We also found some savings with regard to our research and evaluation team so that we can make sure they're working to the best level and still have good research and evaluation results, but had some cost savings there as well. So this is, as I think you'll recall, this year will be the third year of the contract cycle. So next year we'll be working again with members of this committee as well as all our other partners as we prepare for a new procurement process for our prevention and intervention contracts that will start in 15-16. So that'll be a big project for us. SNL is up and running. Many of our team were this morning over at Cal State LA with 352 young people, 64 young adults who will be the youth squad and program coordinators at our 32 sites.
Fantastic.
It was a really terrific morning, a great way to start the day to see all these young people who will be both working, getting job experience, but also serving their community and being partners. We had LAPD there, we had intervention workers there, our terrific partners both in our day-to-day work, but as well with SNL so that we can get this summer off to a great start. I'm fortunate that now that SNL is getting up and running, I'm hoping the office will be a little bit quieter since everybody will be out in the parks, and I can really dig deep into the mayor's directive to have me really examine all things grid and where we can take grid in the next year and beyond. I've met with a lot of community stakeholders over the last 6 months, both grid providers, intervention workers, law enforcement. I was fortunate enough to meet with you, with Councilmember Price. I haven't yet had a chance to meet with Councilmember Cedillo. So that's certainly on the list so that we can, develop and deepen relationships in order to do the best work possible for grid and be most effective. So I know it's been a long meeting, so I think I'll stop there and be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I understand. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For your report, and it's going to be a great journey. We all look forward to working with you and your team.
I'm sorry, I
you want to do introductions? Sure.
I neglected to introduce Reuben Wilson,
Sure.
who's a Director of Law and Policy within the Homeland Security and Public Safety team and has been my terrific partner in getting these contracts done and prepared and all that sort of work. Since although I am a lawyer, I'm a prosecutor, so I don't know anything about the civil stuff. So he's been a really terrific help as well
Good
as the whole
tag
team
effort.
there. And then, of course,
Camilla
right.
Fong from the CAO's office.
Specifically on contracts, we're looking at 15-16 new contract, and where are we at? I understand we start the process early, so there's no interruption of services. When do we launch that effort? This fall?
That's our estimate at this point. That's one of our big priorities now that we're getting these contracts renewed and out with this process to really dig deep, sit down, and make that plan. We want to make sure that we address questions and concerns that this committee's had previously about that process and continue those conversations to get your input as we prepare those new requests for proposals and that new procurement process.
And secondly, and then I'll turn it over to my colleague, some of the challenges I faced as a senior lead officer and very active with the grid and SNL was the fact that our partners in the county still struggled with the whole grid concept. Obviously, we need to take a regional approach, and it's our great hopes that with the new sheriff coming in, that he will embrace gang intervention prevention. What are we doing on reaching out to our colleagues in the county level?
Well, we do that on several fronts, particularly of late with a lot of the challenges in South Los Angeles, in both the areas that cross over city-county, where there's been some particular flare-ups of violence, including just this last weekend, where me and my team were out at the scene of the two scenes of the triple homicide that occurred, to make those connections, make sure our intervention teams are doing things. So we've done several things with the leadership of Deputy Chief Green down in South Bureau, who's very committed and supportive of the work intervention workers do, and trying to really push, I would say he's been a real leader in trying to push the county, the sheriff's department, and the county partners to make sure they see the value in what we're doing, because this violence doesn't know the boundary between the city and the county. We are fortunate to have some intervention workers through our contracted agencies that have the ability to work in both areas and have. I think it's an ongoing process. We've either me or members of my team have been in multiple meetings that have included the sheriffs and our county partners, including last Friday down at 77th Street Station with regard to our preparation for SNL. We had our county partners there in the sheriff's department. We had the school police there. So after the meeting closed, we gave an opportunity for everybody to break up and meet with the permanent year-round grid staff, the intervention workers, some of the summer nightlight seasonal staff, with the sheriffs, with LAUSD, school police, as well as LAPD, to make sure everybody knows each other, knows how to reach each other, and can provide each other support regardless of whether they're city or county. So I think that's that's a goal that it's started to happen, but we got a long way to go, and I couldn't agree more that we have great potential in the future, particularly with a new sheriff.
And some new dollars coming as well. We're hoping to see them dedicate some money.
We certainly hope that the county will do that, especially after seeing the value, and we're happy to share the data we have to show the efficacy of what we've been able to do with regard to intervention.
Well, the numbers don't lie. When we're leading the city, we're leading the country in overall gang homicide, reduction in gang homicides. It's quite a feat. And if you look at what's happening in Chicago, that was us 5-10 years ago. They're turning to us and looking at our gang reduction strategies. And I'm just going to be more pleased, and I want to continue to thank the men and women of your department, the LAPD as well, and our community partners and our gang interventionists, our angels in the city of Angels, as we say. I say this all the time. You hear media saying you're making a deal with the devil. We're not. These are men and women who are out there, foot soldiers on the ground, addressing the homicides and addressing the rumors after a homicide occurred. So I want to thank you. Mr. Cedillo?
A couple of things real brief. In the documents, it talks about us serving 100 clients, and when I look at the agencies that are providing the services, I see that we've got 80. There seems to be some discrepancy there.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure which areas you're referring to. We have...
I think it was page 8 of the mayor's letter.
Sorry about that. Bear with me. Sorry, page 8. Sorry about that. It's in the page now. Okay. Oh, okay. This is with regard to the reentry grant. Yes, and I'm sorry. Where's the discrepancy? 20, 20, and 20? 40, 40.
Then we got 20,
80,
20, 40,
40,
80.
80. Okay. And what was the discrepancy?
You have 100 in the letter.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so that's an error. It should be 80 youth.
Okay.
My apologies for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't see where the 100 was.
Trying to reconcile these things.
Sure.
And the other, I look at the administrative costs, 305, coming from the state, $305,000 doesn't offend us or faze us at all, but I look at the cost, the percent of administrative costs is 45% non-direct services. And I think most evaluations would think is that too small a budget to have? What's your feeling about that? How can we get less administrative costs, more direct service expenditures?
Well, that's something I'll have to take a look at, because I'm absolutely, now that you've raised it, that's something that we can meet as a team and take a look at, and certainly have further discussions for you, because obviously we always want to, in all of our contract and our work, and it's something coming in new to this position, as well as I spoke to you last time, having the fiscal team from the HSPS side be new and part of this, is looking at how we can get, to use that old phrase, the most bang for our buck, and not have the administrative cost for any of our contracts or any of our agencies be a higher percentage than they should be, and take away from those direct services that are so important to the community. So we'll certainly take a look at it, and we can report back to you or have further discussions about that. But it's an issue that we're looking at with everything we do going forward. That's part of why it's been so terrific to have the HSPS fiscal team with their expertise help us look at how we can improve that. And we've made some of those changes already. We've got a new fiscal policy that we're training these contractors, if this all gets approved, the contractors for next year. So we're trying to make those changes to make sure that we're as efficient as we can be on the mayor's office and the city side, and to help our contractors be more efficient and provide more in terms of more of their budgets into direct services than just administrative costs or personnel costs. But it is labor-intensive work.
Mm-hmm. I know that.
Yes.
And I applaud those who got the grants. Homeboy Industries does an extraordinary job. Just doing a pitch for an agency in my district for many years. They do an extraordinary job, but they're kind of out of the box, and we're always struggling to fit them in our box. And I'm glad that we're partnering with them.
Yeah. Yes, we're really fortunate. We've had some terrific meetings with them already as we get this off the ground, and I think it's part of it being a new day, looking at new ways to partner and collaborate, and knowing that from the last time we were here, and they made their presentation. So that's actually where I got to meet Tom Vazo for the first time in doing this position, was at this hearing previously, and we've developed a great rapport with them. And we've got another new agency down in Watts that has an excellent reputation, so we're looking forward to, again, always looking how we can be better, and maybe not always doing the same thing with the same people all the time.
The last thing,
Yes.
Reiterate the chair. I had worked with the county for 12 years, and we have a new sheriff, as they say, or there's going to be a new sheriff. I'm anticipating that it's going to be a former LAPD member. And so it creates real opportunities for us to collaborate. They do some great stuff coming out of the jails. And so, as you said, crime knows no borders or boundaries, and our efforts should in response to it. So I applaud and encourage the ongoing efforts to collaborate with the sheriff and their efforts around reentry.
Well, I may be coming to you for help in that regard as we move forward.
One last question for me on the contract side of it. What do we have in place when we talk about accountability? Do we have measurable goals that we give our contractors, placement of jobs, reduction of crime, call-outs? Can you explain to the committee?
Sure. Well, it sort of depends on the type of contract they have. For prevention, for example, we have client numbers that they're required to serve, and then also other measurable goals like the number of community education events they do. We're very fortunate that recently one of the contracts is for continuing a contract now directly through the city that one of our research partners had for a database. So we've now trained up all of our partners on a database so that we can track in real time the number of clients, what has been done with those clients, what the social workers on learning call the dosage, what the amount and level of services that those clients, either on the prevention or intervention side, have been provided. both the grid office team of the regional program coordinators as well as our intervention workers have to enter into that database what they did in response to an incident. So we have a protocol for when, how we deploy when there's shootings or homicides, and each partner has to report on that, what they've done in the immediately after the incident, but then going over the next week or two, what sort of proactive peacekeeping or other items they've done, so that we can then have a better way to track and check what each of our partners are doing.
Has there been a time where we had to pull somebody's contract for not meeting the goals?
I don't know since I'm new. I think there's sometimes been occasions where we may have come to an agreement to have somebody, rather than necessarily pull the contract. I have heard of that occurring before where we've met, negotiated. I think other times we've also unfortunately had organizations that dissolved, and that's been a challenge in some areas. So that's what's happened. So we do both in the contracts in terms of number of clients served and how they're served in relationship to our model are all in our contracts. We also again use the database as a way to measure. And as a part of sort of the newest version of GRID, with a new administration, with a new group of us in here taking a look at it, we're working very closely with our lead researcher over at Cal State LA to make sure that we have some good measurable goals that for each of our contractors, and that we tell them ahead of time what those goals are and how we're going to monitor them, so that we're being transparent and collaborative with our contractors, but then also holding them accountable if they don't meet those goals.
Good. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll approve item number 4 without objection. Okay. Item number 5, we have one card on item number 5. Oh, you good?
We asked you to approve the CAO report.
Okay, back to item 4, we will approve the CAO's report. We'll send that to council. If I can call item number 5, we have Dan Allen. Dan still here? Welcome. Mr. Clerk, read item 5 into the record, please.
Item number 5 is a report from the Bureau of Street Services relative to adding nut or fruit-bearing trees to the tree selection guide.
Hi, how are you? Welcome.
Good, thanks. My name's Dan Allen. I run Farmscape. We're an urban farming company based here in Los Angeles. And we work with residences to help set up fruit and vegetable gardens. And in our experience at a couple hundred different sites, one of the trickiest parts is just finding a spot that gets enough sunlight, especially when you get into neighborhoods where the lots are cut a lot smaller. And a lot of times the parkway, because of how it's situated relative to the house and hedges and fences and all that, ends up being the area where you get the best sunlight. And so especially in neighborhoods where you have legitimate food security concerns, the opportunity to grow food in that space is tremendous for them. And the only thing I'd add is beyond being a great source of food, I think it's a great opportunity to beautify in that everything from the new red foliage and avocado trees to the pink blossoms on a peach tree are a great kind of ornamental element to beautify our neighborhood. So thanks a lot, and thanks to Public Works for constructing this list. We urge you to support it.
Fantastic.
Do you have any measures? I hear a lot of people talk about food security. This is a food source. What's the measure of food product that gets produced to the total consumption of the city?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like how many of the fruits that are actually on trees get eaten? Is that the question?
Well, the percent. I'm more interested in the percent. The number can be impressive, but what's really relevant to me is this a 0.001%, 0.0001% of people's consumption? What's the measure on that?
I don't know. A mature tree is going to give you between 75 and 150 fruit. I couldn't tell you how many of them get eaten. Yeah.
But what's the percent of consumption? It's what's really important.
For sure. I can't speak to that.
I can tell you one resident who's excited about this item. That's my son. We're limited on what we can plant in the backyard, but we do have some space in our parkway
What are you going to put up there?
Well, he wanted to make sure they're apple and peaches, so I understand they're both on the approved list.
That's a great choice, yeah.
So-
make sure you get a low chill apple.
Low chill apple. Okay, I'll note that. We're also contending with squirrels, though.
Oh, okay. That'll be a good challenge.
Yeah. Well, I understand there's a tree planting permit application that's involved in this. If we can have street services come forward. Thank you so much for your comment. I appreciate it.
Good afternoon.
Aside from approving the list of fruit and nut trees, can you explain the permit application process?
Yeah, good afternoon. It's good to be here in front of you again today. The permit process is just the same process as any standard tree. They would submit their request through our Service Request Center. We would receive it and issue the permit for them. The information from our inspection and the permit activity would be inputted into our urban forestry management system, and we'd have a record online of it.
Got it.
And it's a no-fee permit.
No fee. Very good.
Important.
No, I was just going to say that this whole idea was an offshoot from the Edible Gardens or Edible Parkways initiative that started up by Councilman Weston's office. And we were
in response to Steve Lopez's column.
Lopez item, we call it. We were specifically trying to deal with trees and shrubs and ground covers with that report. And then the question came up about what about street trees? And so we did take a look at it, and Mr. Monfett, Greg Monfett, and the rest of our urban foresters looked at that particular issue and discussed it. And we came up with this list. It's not finite. We have had subsequent questions about why certain trees made the list and certain trees did not, and so we will be considering additional species in the future, and we may modify the list, and it's open to probably annually we may adjust the list and
very good.
Add more species.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cedillo. You good? Okay, so without objection, we'll approve the BSS report and send that to council. Thank you so much. I believe our final item number 7, just want to get a report. You want to read that into the record and call Mr. Jordan up?
Great. Item number 7 is a motion from Councilmembers Price and Buscaino relative to preparing and presenting an ordinance to regulate unattended collection boxes, and this one's also referred to the Public Safety Committee.
Okay, we heard this last month and want to just get an update on the drafting of the ordinance. Would like to have it done by today, but I understand your workload and your roles and responsibility. Where are we at? How are we doing that on?
Ted Jordan, Assistant City Attorney. It actually, as we have dug into this, one of the things that we're looking at this ordinance that the motion calls for would be involving making changes in the city's zoning code. And under the charter changes to the zoning code, that ordinance would first have to go through the Planning Commission. So what I was hoping to do here would at least be to try to identify some of the areas as we have dug into this, and we also received some draft ordinance language from one of the interest groups, I believe, that spoke. And so looking at the motion, what the existing city laws are, plus this draft ordinance that the interest group was interested in, and also having some discussions with department staff, as well as Councilman Price's office. There's a few things that I'm hoping, at least in the committee process here, we could get some clarification. One would be whether the desire of the council will be to, whether this motion is intended to include the public right-of-way. Right now, a box of this type is simply prohibited in the public right-of-way. It would violate the municipal code provisions that prevent you from essentially storing property in the public right-of-way. So we'd sort of hope to get some clarification from that, whether that is intended to cover it. As you know, the public right-of-way has a lot of stuff in it, and so we allow news racks, but there's First Amendment issues there, so and we do regulate those. So we'd hope for some clarification on that. Also, the motion itself talks about collection boxes for shoes and clothing. The draft ordinance that the interest group presented talks a bit more broadly in terms of what kinds of materials. So we'd hope to get some clarification.
Clothing, saying.
Well, the motion spoke in terms of shoes and clothing. The draft ordinance language that the interest group kind of circulated to us, just to see if it would help us, also talked about books, or household items, so we'd want to get some clarification.
Okay.
To the extent the ordinance is broader, there may be some overlap with what we have in the zoning code. To the extent it's shoes and clothing, keep in mind the ordinance just said shoes and clothing. So that direction is very specific, and we could work with that. I just wanted to present to you that there may be other materials out there, but if you're fine with shoes and clothing, that was my understanding from the discussion.
Right. So you're saying to make it broader, to include other materials?
If you wanted to. I mean, that would be your option. To the extent there's other materials in there.
Because I can foresee, okay, well, hey, we can't collect shoes and clothes, but let's put a box for household items or...
The existing zoning code...
Books, blankets.
Yes, the existing zoning code allows, as now by right, because it's in the zoning code with certain limitations, nonprofits and other groups to have containers on their property that collect other kinds of recyclables.
But this is on private property.
Yes, private property.
We're still talking public right-of-way.
Well, no. Public right-of-way, I think the direction that we would want is, do you want to allow that at all? Because right now it's just not allowed in the public right-of-way. Right. To do that, you need a revocable permit from the Public Works Department.
Sure.
Let's assume that you don't want it on the public right-of-way. You're just going to have it on the private property. We just, if you don't do anything, we would present an ordinance, after going through the planning process, of course, that just dealt with shoes and clothing. That's a fairly clear instruction. We can work with that.
Okay.
I just wanted to put out there the possibility that there may be other things, but without any further direction, we would do it for shoes and clothing.
Okay, let's hold this in committee, and we'll fold in Mr. Price's office as well.
Okay. I know that there's the desire of the council to get this going as quickly as possible, so we really want to help in that regard as well.
Right. In response to Mr. Price, I too have concerns. I have concerns in my district as well.
Yeah, another way of handling it is if you wanted to advance the motion to get it to the council quickly, then any further direction from Councilman Price or anyone else, say on the scope, could be done at that level as well, rather than keeping the motion itself here.
I see.
Another area where we'd hope for some further clarification in the direction would be to include the planning department and building safety departments as part of this, because one of the things that you've asked is the ordinance to have a permit. The permit would have a fee, so we need to work with those departments to identify what that fee would be. They'd have to look at their costs, so we have a fee that comports with their costs.
Okay.
And then the planning department, since we're getting into the zoning code, we'd be going through the planning commission.
Got it. Okay, we'll hold this in committee.
Okay.
And so we can work out the kinks.
Okay.
And then have all our respective offices work together on this. And you do want to fold in the planning department as well.
Well, planning and building safety. Building safety, we would work with them because they would be the enforcement end of this. The ordinance, the motion rather, did call for an enforcement mechanism. We have good mechanisms already in the zoning code, so we would just take those enforcement mechanisms and then put them into this ordinance. Okay. The planning department in terms of, and also building and safety in terms of any fees that would be done for a permit, we'd have to look to those departments to tell us what the cost would be associated with their effort in issuing a permit, because the ability to collect a fee is limited by what the costs are to provide the service that the permit is for.
Okay, let's fine-tune this, and let's report back in 60 days, and hopefully by then we can we'll have all our ducks in order before we send it to council.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else on the agenda?
No.
Okay.
Nothing.
You good? Okay, with that, today's Public Works and Gain Reduction Committee is now adjourned. Thank you.